Hello everybody and welcome back to BeginnerJS. I'm Abrar and I'm going to be your instructor for this video. And in this video, we're going to be talking about strings, what they are and how are they used inside JavaScript. So let's jump right in. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about strings. What exactly is a string and why are they used inside JavaScript? Well, strings are used to represent normal text inside JavaScript. You see, JavaScript is a programming language and it is used mostly on the web. Inside web pages, JavaScript is often used to manipulate HTML and CSS, which means to dynamically add or manipulate the content shown to a user on a web page. And doing that requires working with text. In fact, almost every high-level programming language works with text in one way or another. And that's why you need a way of representing this normal text in JavaScript. In JavaScript and in most other high-level programming languages, it is done using strings. Strings is a data type that is used to represent normal text inside JavaScript. One of the designating features of strings is that they are usually enclosed in quotation marks, which means when you write normal text in JavaScript, at the start you put in a quotation mark and at the end you put in another quotation mark. And in between these two quotation marks is where you actually put the string text. So strings are usually said to be wrapped around in quotation marks. Let's see an example. So here's an example of a string in JavaScript. In this case, the text that we want to have inside JavaScript is the sentence, "The sky is blue," although the text can be pretty much anything. However, inside JavaScript, we can't just write text as is, as that would contradict with the code and confuse JavaScript. So in this case, if we want to write normal text inside JavaScript, we have to write them as strings. And that's why, as you'll notice, at the start of this sentence, we have a quotation mark. Specifically, we have a double quotation mark. And then at the very end of the sentence, after the period symbol, we have another quotation mark, another double quotes. And in between these two double quotes is where we put the string text, which is "The sky is blue," a sentence. And by wrapping this text around in a pair of quotation marks, we have created a string. Also note that at the very end of the string, we have a semicolon. Now, semicolons are a way of ending statements in JavaScript. They're often not required and you can skip them most of the time. However, it's a very good practice to actually add a semicolon after each complete statement. It makes the code more readable and manageable as well. So this is a basic example of a string. You basically write some text and you wrap it around in a pair of quotation marks. All the text here is put in between the pair of double quotation marks. And whenever you have a pair of related quotation marks inside JavaScript, that is automatically treated as a string. Okay, so in the first example, we had a string where we wrote some text and we wrapped it around in a pair of double quotes, meaning at the beginning and end of the text, we put in double quotes to create a string in JavaScript. However, you don't have to use double quotes. You can actually also use single quotes as well. So in the second example, we have another sentence, "I love cats." But in this case, at the beginning and end of this sentence, we don't have double quotes. We have put a single quote instead. And this is also a perfectly valid string in JavaScript. In JavaScript, you can use either double quotes or single quotes to create a string. There's not much difference between the two. So it ultimately comes down to personal preference. Some developers prefer using double quotes and some prefer using single quotes. However, in your code, you should just choose one and stick with it to avoid confusion. Now, so far we've seen strings contain normal text, such as letters, words, and white spaces. However, strings can contain numbers, symbols, and even other languages as well. So for example, in the third string, we have the numbers 34.5, and we have some special symbols as well, and even characters from other non-English languages. And these are all perfectly valid strings. Along with letters, numbers, white spaces, and punctuation marks, strings can contain symbols and other languages as well. Now here's an important thing to remember about strings. What if you have a quotation mark inside the text itself? So here, for example, we have the text, "I'm a programmer," and the word "I'm," which is I''M, or I and a single quote and then M. So what do you do in this case? Well, if you have quotation marks inside the text itself, then you need to put the opposite quotation marks outside the text to represent the string. So here, for example, we're using single quotes inside the string itself. And that's why outside the string, we are using double quotes. So we have double quotes at the start and end of the string, and that's why we can use single quotes inside the string without any confusion. However, if we want to use double quotes inside the string itself, we can also do that, but in that case, we can use single quotes outside the string. So for example, here we have a piece of text that says, "He said, I like computers." And in this case, the sentence "I like computers" is actually enclosed in a pair of quotation marks themselves. We have double quotes around it, because it's something that another person has said. So what do we do in this case? Well, because we're using double quotes inside the string itself, we can use single quotes outside the string. So at the very beginning and at the very end of the string, we can put in single quotes, and that won't create any confusion. So the rule of thumb here is if you're using quotation marks inside the string itself, you should use the opposite quotation marks outside the string. So if you're using single quotation marks inside the string, then use double quotation marks outside the string and vice versa. However, that's not the only option that you have. You can have the same quotation marks inside and outside the string as well. So for example, in this case, we have the same sentence that says, "He said, I like computers." However, in this case, we're using double quotation marks outside the string. But here, in order to avoid confusion and actually tell JavaScript exactly where the string starts and ends, we have to deliberately specify which quotation marks are a part of the string and which are not. So in this case, we have to do what is called escaping these special characters. So double quotation marks inside a string which also has double quotation marks is a special character. So in this case, we specifically need to mark and escape these special characters inside the string. And we do that by putting in a backslash in front of them. So in this case, the double quotes that are outside the string, meaning which represents the string itself, is put as is, without any problem. However, the double quotes that are inside the string, which are the double quotes around the sentence "I like computers," are deliberately escaped with a backslash. So before we put a double quote inside the string, we put a backslash first and then a double quote, as it is highlighted by the blue text. And at the end, after "I like computers" and a period symbol, we have another double quote. We put in a backslash first and then the double quote. So by putting in a backslash, we're deliberately telling JavaScript that these quotes are actually part of the string itself and should not be treated as the end of the string. And that's how we can put double quotes inside and outside the string all at the same time. So remember, if you're using double quotes inside the string and outside the string as well, then you have to deliberately escape the double quotes inside the string so JavaScript doesn't confuse them with the ones outside the string. And you do that by putting in a backslash in front of it. These backslashes can be used to escape a lot of special characters inside JavaScript strings, including the backslash character itself. Okay, so far we've been creating strings and understanding what strings are and how they are used. We've already seen a lot of examples of strings, how you can create them, and what exactly they represent inside JavaScript. Now, creating strings in JavaScript is okay. However, there's not much that we can do just by creating strings. Thankfully, strings have properties and methods available to them. Now, properties and methods, as you'll learn more in our objects video, represent related data and functionality all together for a specific object. Now, when you create a string in JavaScript using the syntax that we just saw, you are actually creating a string literal. And by definition, string literals, or any literals for that case, can have properties and methods. Thankfully, whenever you create a string literal inside JavaScript, JavaScript internally wraps around a string object around that literal, which means even string literals can have properties and methods available to them, because they inherit them from their respective string objects. What this means in simpler terms is basically whenever you create a string, you have access to a lot of cool properties and methods that you can apply on those strings. Here are a few examples. One of the most commonly used properties of strings is the length property, and you can access the value of the length property by putting in a period symbol or a dot and then typing in the name of the property, so in this case, .length. So we first create a string. In this case, we have the string "hello world." So we put in a pair of double quotes, and inside the pair of double quotes, we put in the string text. In this case, it is "hello world" and then a period symbol. So now we have a string and we want to access the length property of this string. We do that by putting in a dot after the string and then the property name, in this case length. And finally, we finish off the statement with a semicolon, because that is how you finish a statement in JavaScript. So the whole code in this case is the hello world string, then a dot or period symbol, and then length. You can read it as hello world.length. And if you actually write and execute this code inside a JavaScript console, you'll get the output, the number 12. So, what exactly is going on here? Well, strings have a property called the length property. And the length property, as the name implies, contains a value which will tell you exactly how many characters are there inside the string itself. Which means the length property can be used to retrieve the length of the string, or to tell you how long the string is. So we have a string that says hello world and then a period symbol. And if you count all the characters, including all the letters, white spaces, and punctuation marks inside this string, you'll see that it adds up to 12 total characters. So this string contains 12 characters, or it has a length of 12. And that's why when you access the length property of the string by typing in the string, then dot length, it gives you the output 12. So the length property can be used to access the length of a string. And it is actually a very useful and handy property that you can use on strings. Now, a quick note before we move forward. As you can see in this example, we have the code on the left-hand side and the output on the right-hand side. This is the pattern that you'll see throughout this course, where we have the code example on the left and the output on the right-hand side. Actually, the output in this case is written as a JavaScript comment. Now you can create a comment inside JavaScript by putting in double slashes. So in this case, we have 2 forward slashes, and then anything we input after that forward slash for that specific line is treated as a comment. So in this case, whenever we put in double slashes and then the number 12, then that number 12 is treated as a comment. But why exactly do we have comments in JavaScript? Well, these comments are not actually executed by the browser. In JavaScript, these comments are treated as white spaces. They're not part of the executable code that can be ran. So in this case, comments are often used to describe the code. So developers often use comments to describe what their code does and how they work. So other developers can understand the code a lot easily just by glancing over it. Now in our case, in this course, we'll be using comments to describe what the code does or to show you the output of the code. So in this case, we have a comment with the output 12. Which is the output of the code on the left-hand side. So in this case, we'll be using comments to denote what exactly is the output of the code or how the code works. Okay, so now let's talk about methods. Now we already know about length, which is a property of the string, but strings can also have methods. Methods are like functionalities that you can apply to strings. In most cases, methods actually allow you to do something with the string. Here's an example. Here we have a string. In this case, the string says cats are cute and then an exclamation symbol. And then we have applied the toLowerCase method to the string. And we do that by typing in a dot or a period symbol and then the name of the method. In this case, the name of the method is toLowerCase. And then we put in a pair of parentheses, as a starting parentheses and then an ending parentheses. These pair of parentheses is what actually executes the method. So in this case, we have a method called toLowerCase, and we have executed it by putting in a pair of parentheses. Finally, we end the statement with a semicolon. Now in this case, the output of this code, as you can see on the right-hand side in a comment, is the string cats are cute. However, all the characters inside the string are now in lowercase. In our original code, we had a lot of the characters in uppercase. For example, the C in cats were in uppercase, and also the whole word cute was uppercase. However, after applying the toLowerCase method on the string, we get the same string returned. However, all the characters are now converted into lowercase letters. So cats are cute are all in lowercase. And that is how methods work. They usually take a string and apply some functionality to that string. They modify the string in some way. And they allow you to do a lot of awesome and cool things with these strings. So the toLowerCase method in specific actually takes a string and converts all the characters inside the string to lowercase letters. So in this case, no matter what string you have, the output will be the same string. However, all the letters and characters will be converted into lowercase. And that is how the toLowerCase method works. Now one quick thing to note here, and that is JavaScript is very case sensitive. which means in order for the code to work correctly, we have to write the names of these methods exactly as shown here, which means the method toLowercase have to be written exactly as shown, with the letters L and C in uppercase and all others in lowercase. Otherwise, the method will not work and it might throw an error. The opposite of the toLowercase method is the toUppercase method. And the toUppercase method, as the name implies, does the exact opposite. It takes a string and returns that string, however, with all the characters converted into uppercase letters. So in this case, we have a string at first which says JS is fun. And then we execute the toUppercase method on this string by typing in a dot and then typing in toUppercase and then putting in a pair of parentheses to actually execute the method. And then we end the statement with the semicolon. And the resulting output is the same string JS is fun, however, this time all the characters have been converted into uppercase letters. So JS is fun, all the characters are converted into uppercase. Where previously in the original code, the words is and fun were actually in lowercase. So the toUppercase method can be used to convert all the characters inside a string into uppercase letters. And both of these methods are actually quite useful when working with user input. Another cool method that is available to strings is the repeat method. The repeat method can be used to repeat a string over and over again. So in this case, we have a string that says bird. So we basically have bird enclosed in a pair of quotation marks. And then we execute the repeat method on the string. So we put in a dot and then repeat. And now this time, instead of putting in just a pair of parentheses, we actually have a number inside this pair of parentheses. As you'll learn later on in the functions video, these numbers are actually arguments passed as parameters to the specific method. So in this case, by putting in repeat and then a pair of parentheses, and inside the pair of parentheses, we have the number 4. Finally, we end the statement with a semicolon. And at the output of this code, as you can see on the right hand side, is the string bird, 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 bird. So the string has been repeated or duplicated a total of 4 times. And that is what we specified inside our code. By putting in 4 inside a pair of parentheses, we are telling JavaScript to repeat the string 4 times. If we put in 5, then the output result would have been bird, 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 bird. If we put in 2, the output result would have been bird, bird. So in this case, using the parameter, we can tell JavaScript exactly how many times to repeat the specific string. So the repeat method can be used to repeat a string or copy it over or duplicate it over and over again. And inside the pair of parentheses, you can put in a number telling exactly how many times you want the string to be repeated. Another cool method is the replace method. The replace method can be used to search for a string inside another string and replace that portion with some other text. So in this case, we have a string that says I love cakes, and then we run or execute the replace method on the string. So after the string, we put in a dot and then we type in the name of the method, which is replace. And then we put in a pair of parentheses. Now inside the pair of parentheses, we actually input 2 separate parameters. So on the repeat method above, we only had one parameter, which was the number of times the string need to be repeated, which is a number. However, in the replace method, we have 2 different parameters. Both in this case are strings. The first parameter is the string cakes. Then we have a comma, then the second parameter, which is the string chocolates. So in this case, the parameters are separated by a comma. And finally, we end the code with a semicolon. And the output, as you can see on the next line, is the string I love chocolates. So what exactly is going on here? Well, the replace method can be used to search for the instance of a string inside another string and replace it with an alternate text. So in this case, inside the replace method, the first parameter is the search string. So in this case, we're searching for the string cakes. And the second parameter represents what should be used in the place of the search string. So if the search string is found inside the original string, what should we replace it with? And in this case, on the original string, we have the text I love cakes. And then inside the replace method, we're searching for the word cakes. So JavaScript searches for the word cakes inside the string I love cakes, and obviously finds it because we have the word cakes inside the string I love cakes. And then we're replacing it with the word chocolates. So JavaScript takes the original sentence I love cakes, finds the word cakes inside the string, and then replaces the word cakes with chocolates. So the resulting string, as you can see on the next line, is the string I love chocolates. And that is how the replace method works. Now we're using strings inside the replace method in this case. However, strings are not very flexible. For more advanced pattern matching and string searching, you can use something called a regular expression or a regex. But for now, using strings are a simpler way of understanding how the replace method works. The replace method basically takes a string, searches for that string inside the original string, and it can also replace the string with another string if a match is found. And that is how the replace method works. Finally, we'll talk about the trim method. The trim method is a very useful method as well. So what does the trim method do? Basically, the trim method can be used to trim or delete extra white spaces from the beginning and end of a string. So in this case, we have a string that says, I'm learning JS. However, as you can see at the beginning and at the end of the string, we have a lot of extra white spaces. We might not want these in our code. So we can use the trim method to trim off these extra white spaces from the string. So we can write the string, then execute the trim method on the string by putting in a dot and then typing in trim and then a pair of parentheses to actually execute the method. Finally, we end the statement with a semicolon. And the output, as you can see on the right hand side, is the same string, I'm learning JS. However, the extra and unnecessary white spaces from the beginning and end of the string have been removed. So the trim method can be used to trim off these extra white spaces from the beginning and end of a string. Okay, so we took a look at quite a few properties and methods for strings. There are a lot more available. However, these are some common and useful methods that every JavaScript developer should definitely know. As you'll start learning more advanced JavaScript in the future, you'll probably start learning a lot more about strings and learn a lot more properties and methods beside these. However, for now, these are good enough for a start.